So I'm about 68% through my 20s, and I feel like I've gotten a good enough dose of the quote unquote real world and being an adult. And here are the best and worst decisions I've made in my 20s. Now, before we get started, I want to say I am happy where I am currently, mentally, financially, physically, spiritually. Overall, I am happy with the life that I've lived up to this point. I will say this isn't advice, it's really just my personal experience. Not everyone's circumstances are the same. So if you're watching this and you haven't made some of these choices, or you've made some of the worst decisions that I've made in my experience, and you haven't made some of the best decisions that I've made in my experience, doesn't mean that it has to be good or bad for you. I'm really not here to judge. Like I said, it's just my personal experience. It's not advice. Not everyone's circumstances are the same. So, whether you did or didn't make any of these, don't feel too bad, especially if you're still in your 20s, because it means you're really young. So without further ado, let's get started. Starting off with the worst decisions that I feel like I've made through my 20s. And I'm going to also include my early adult years, my late teens. The one of the worst decisions that I made starting off was staying in a bad relationship longer than I should have. Honestly, it wasn't that long. It was only a 10-month relationship, and we were good for, I would say, like the first like maybe 6 months. But even when the relationship was good, I don't think I should have stayed in that relationship, because I knew it wouldn't be long term. I knew that we just weren't compatible for the long term. And I'm always been the type of person to take relationships serious. I did stay in this one because at the time, I would say I was in a good situation, a good spot mentally. I was making decent money, especially for someone my age at that time. And I wanted to share that experience. I wanted to share that part of my life with someone where, I could just spend time with, talk, enjoy each other's company. And it made me want to be in a relationship. Not that I forced, but in the beginning, honestly, everything was good. Knowing that I didn't think we were going to be long term, I should have kind of just terminated the relationship at that point, when I kind of started to realize, like, oh, even though I have a good time here, I really don't see this being, a 5-year relationship. I don't see this leading into marriage and spending the rest of my life with this person. And I think that's kind of important for the type of person that I am. So, it wasn't too bad as far as how much time was spent in the relationship, especially how much time things were bad for. But I did lose a lot because it drained me mentally, since I was so heavily invested into the relationship. And I was always thinking about the future, and how the decisions that I made today at that time would affect me 5 and 10 years down the road. But honestly, I'm bullshitting. What can I say? I stayed in the relationship longer than I was supposed to, because she was a real eater. I can't sit here and lie and act like that didn't play a part. But hey, I was young. It is what it is, and I value different things differently now. The next thing that I would say was one of the worst decisions I made in my 20s was having a car note. And similar to the last point, I was in a good spot financially when I got my first car note. My first car, I did pay it off in cash. But my second car, the type of person I am, I really don't like debt, whether it's quote unquote good debt, bad debt, short term debt, long term debt. I don't like credit card debt, student loan debt, homeowners debt, paying rent, anything that I don't own, I don't want to spend the money on. So getting a car note was really a surprise for me. But when it was time for me to get my second car, I had a good amount of money saved up, and I really tried what I thought was my hardest to go and get another cash car. But at the time, COVID had spiked up the car prices, the used car market. People were getting in all types of accidents around that time because everyone had so much money, and it was just disposable income, that people were selling cars for crazy amounts. I'm talking like '03 Toyotas for like $8,000 with 175,000 miles on it. It was honestly ridiculous at the time. So, but with that happening, and not wanting to waste my money chancing getting a lemon, I really was just put in a rough spot. And had I known more about cars, what cars were good and reliable, what cars could run for a long time, I thought that I did, and I thought I did my research, but it wasn't enough, because simple research, and TikTok wasn't really a thing for me at the time, and even if it wasn't like what it is now, where you can do legitimate research. But it wasn't it. I didn't have the tools at my disposal both externally and internally to know what the good cars were. You know, looking back, if I could have redid it over again, I would have definitely gotten me a Honda, or I would have got me a Corolla or a Prius by Toyota. But you know, I made the mistake. I'll say that. Um, whew. Now, how this affected me was it made life more difficult as it got more expensive because I could afford the car note with really relatively no issue at the time. But when you sign up for a car note, especially something that's 6 plus 1 years, um, you have to continue to pay that note no matter what is going on in life. You know, I got a good deal at the time. $300 a month for a brand new car was honestly, it felt like it was great at the time. And nowadays, it's probably still a great deal. But again, for the type of person I am, it made things more difficult as life got more expensive. So when I got my first apartment, I had to still continue to pay that $300 a month. When I started paying off other things like my student loans, I had to still pay that $300 a month. When I wanted to travel more, when I found out things that I liked and I actually enjoyed spending money on, I couldn't do it as comfortably as I would have because, or as comfortable as I would have wanted to, because I still had to pay that $300 every single month. It wasn't a bad decision at the time, but again, thinking long term, $300 coming out every month. It was nice to not have to pay for maintenance and repairs and having that peace of mind. And I won't say I really don't have a regret about it, but it did put a cap on my money and what I could do with my money at the time. It hindered how much I could save. It hindered how much I could potentially invest and how much I could put away for trips and nice things that I like actually spending my money on. But seriously, not a regret at all. The next thing, one of the worst decisions I made in my early adulthood was not speaking up for myself more. I honestly thought that being a good person, being an honest person would carry me where I had to go. And these are really good qualities, really great traits to have, but those alone will not take you where you need to go, at least in my experience. I had to mix this with ambition, with self dignity, identifying situations that weren't good for me and people that try to take advantage of me, and instead of just making a clean break and getting myself away from those types of situations where I needed to speak up for myself. Had I been more vocal, people would know not to treat me a certain way, whether this be colleagues at work or managers and bosses, even friends and family members. This type of thing does make a difference. No, when people know that you are willing to speak up for yourself versus just stepping away and walking away. I thought that I was being the better and more mature person, which has a level of truth to it. But speaking up for myself more, man, honestly, it would have made a huge difference in things as important as family relations and things as small as contract negotiations. Now, the last thing I would say, one of the worst decisions of my early adulthood is being passive. I used to avoid taking risks, and that led to financial setbacks. It led to me missing out on fun, passing on potential life-changing experiences. And I talked about the risk of not taking risks in one of my previous videos. So if you want a little bit more in-depth of a talk on it, or at least from my perspective, go ahead and watch that video. Now, before I move on to the best decisions that I made in my 20s, there is a middle ground here for me. Those 2 points of the middle ground is the first being smoking and drinking. The reason I won't say this is one of the worst decisions of my 20s is because I enjoyed it. I never abused it. I used it in moderation, both smoking and drinking. Honestly, it was fun. I networked. I met people that I, probably wouldn't have met, or if I did meet, wouldn't have had the same types of relationship with. And it all, it seemed like, it seemed like during that time, all it took was you try and match, you want to smoke, and the relationships just seem to build from there. And these are people that I still know to this day, even though I don't, smoke anymore. The bad decision for me, I would say more so is related to drinking. I didn't start drinking until like later on in college, and even though I don't again regret anything, I would say that the thing about drinking that would be on the negative side for me isn't, again, that I abuse it or anything, but more so just the experience that I had in life before I had ever taken a drink and the experience that I have in life after drinking. You know how it feels, so it kind of makes you want to do it sometimes. But before I ever had a drink, I never even cared to have a drink. If there was alcohol around me, I never had to make the decision of yes, I'm drinking or no, I'm not drinking. And that, that counts for a lot in my opinion. So I would definitely say that's one of my middle grounds. And then not investing, investing earlier is always better. But this would have been one of the worst decisions if I didn't have something on the other side that I gained from not investing, which takes us to the best decisions that I've made throughout my 20s and my early adulthood. First off, being building financial literacy at a young age, easily. I decided to try to become financially savvy, but without being like one of those geeky finance bros. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I tried to, build up my financial literacy at a young age, and it paid off like mightily, not just through my finances, but through my lifestyle and how I make my decisions, whether it's financial or not. I built up a high savings account even without having high pay at the time. And I avoided useless subscriptions, pocket draining, short term gratification type activities. And this was really crucial for my years between 18 and I would say 22, that I made smart money decisions to help set me up for things that I would eventually need and want later on in life. The second thing, one of the best decisions I made in my 20s, staying home for as long as I could. It allowed me to build. It allowed me to set myself up for, again, when I needed certain situations, when I needed certain capital later on in my 20s, I had it because I was allowed to build, because I stayed at home. It allowed me to live cheaply. It set a baseline for living as cheaply as I could, which was acceptable at the time. When I was 21, 22 years old, I didn't need to be buying crazy expensive clothes. I didn't need steak dinners. I didn't need all these things that people do for social acceptance. And honestly, I would say the most important point about me staying home into my early 20s was that I was able to spend time with my family, time that I would never be able to get back. Some of them aren't here anymore, and I cherish those days, and I wish that I could spend more time with them. But I'm so happy for the time that I did spend while I was at home, living with my folks. The next thing, best decision I've made, is building and maintaining great relationships. I have one of the most solid friend groups I've ever seen. We might be one of the most solid friend groups of all time. And they're not going to see this, but this is truly how I see it. Those are my really good close friends. I see them as family. I'm a godfather to one of my homies' daughters. I look at them, they know my parents, they know my family, they know my nieces, nephews, and everything. I call their kids my nieces and nephews themselves, and this has been a really big source of happiness for me throughout my life, the time that I get to spend with my friends. Also, just character building. Having really great relationships allowed me to be my genuine, authentic self, and that type of peace of mind is priceless. I can't tell you how nice it is to live a life knowing that I am myself at all times, and I am genuine at all times. And a lot of people don't have the confidence to live that type of lifestyle. So seriously, just a good thing there. Now, the next thing, one of the best decisions I made in my early 20s is solitude, practicing being by myself. Plenty of alone time meant that I was staying out of peer pressure for one, and that helped me to not make plenty of terrible decisions that could have been made had things been the other way. I spent time figuring out who I am and what it is that I like, so that I know the things that I don't like, and it helped me stick to my guns. Like I said earlier, spending the things that I actually enjoy spending money on instead of wasting it on things that might help me gain some social acceptance, or things that I don't, I would look back at and say, I do that. We all have those types of decisions and those types of times, but I really limited it and just stayed to what it is that I know that I like, because I was able to try things. I would regularly delete social medias to focus on reading. I have another video about the importance of reading books in my life. Go ahead and watch that if you want to delve deeper into it. But I really worked on my reading and my self-development, and focused on my peace of mind when I would delete social media for like stretches at a time. I'm talking about like a month, couple months and then come back, download it again, not use social media too heavy and get addicted. And then if I found a really good book that I wanted to read again, I would just delete social media all over again and, do it all over. It really, really helped shape who I am today because I spent so much time in solitude and just developed and figured out who I am. Seriously, again, priceless. Now, the last few things. Gonna start off growing my hair long. I love it. There's no real logical thing for it. I just love it. It makes me happy. I keep up my hair. I'm as well. It doesn't hurt that other people love my hair. So I get a lot of compliments when I go out, especially when my hair is just freshly done and everything. Seriously, I love my hair. On the last time, I didn't let other people define my happiness. So nowadays, other people, they can't pressure me. I don't really follow trends. Like if I do, it's rare that I'm following trends. If I am, I'm not doing it for other people. And I don't hide myself behind a mask just to please others. And this is really at any turn. We all do things we want to do sometimes for the greater good. But I don't hide who I am. I'm always going to be me. And this happened because I did not let other people define what happiness looks like. I was myself based on factors that I thought mattered. So, it really helped me, like I said. And the last two things, I started my own brand when I was 20. When I was 20, I started my own brand. I make videos, I post them on positive messages, encouragement messages, you can call them motivational messages, practical information, and I posted for roughly 5 years before I started experimenting with different frequencies a few times a week, every day. And I'm still posting to this day, but starting the brand so many people I never would have met, and it helped me build relationships. I've had great time and experiences. I learned the art of sales through my brand, and I started selling clothes. Decided that people told me that they want some type of representation of the message that I was out. So I started making clothes. I started selling those, and that ended up being its own experience that I could talk about for hours on it. And then the last thing, the best decision that I made in my entire 20s easily was finding the love of my life. It's funny because it started off with me talking about how I stayed in a bad relationship longer than I should. And now the relationship that I'm in is just amazing. It's the girl that I plan to marry. I don't benefit anything from saying that because she doesn't watch these videos, but honestly, there are some logical things that are great about this relationship, like having someone to spend time with, saving money to cook, and not having to do certain things. But it's not even a logical thing for me. This is just some of the best experiences in my life. I experienced it all, and we experienced it. Made me a better man. I learned better from throughout the years, and I really want again to talk about this all day long, 20 days straight, but I won't. It's just that amazing, and I know this video is kind of dragging, but honestly, who cares, right? It's my video. I only have 10 views. If you made it to the end of this, then I truly do appreciate you. And if you did make it to the end of this video, comment the word mustard, and that's how I know you're real. I would love to talk about it. That's just what I say at the end of my videos. I might start to tag that as some type of phrase that's how to come in. I usually don't do videos in one part of my journey that I'm going to enjoy. I love making these videos. I love going back and playing all the movies that I used to love trick shots on. This is all been a great experience that I'm just grateful to be able to have. So then, if you made it to the end, I appreciate you. Comment mustard, and I'll comment relish back. I don't know, but have a great one. Talk to you.